My parents left me to bleed out so they could celebrate my brother's success. Now they're the ones losing everything. So, I've been holding this in for a long time and figured Reddit might be the place to finally get it off my chest. I'm Derek, 30 years old, and I run a small custom motorcycle repair shop. Well, I used to. Anyway, more on that later. Growing up in Bristol, Tennessee, not because of the town, but because of my family situation. See, I have a younger brother, Tyler. He's 3 years younger than me, and in my parents' eyes, the sun basically shines out of his. Our house was basically the Tyler show 24/7. Our living room looked like some kind of weird baseball museum, with all his trophies displayed like they were Olympic medals or something. Team photos everywhere, his old jerseys hung up in frames like he was Ruth or something. I'm not even kidding, my parents had a special cabinet built just for his baseball stuff. Meanwhile, my stuff? I was pretty good at auto shop in high school and won a few awards for engine rebuilds. Know where those ended up? In a drawer somewhere or the trash, maybe. I got a "that's nice" from my dad once in a blue moon. I remember spending a whole summer when I was 16 fixing up this old Kawasaki engine. I saved for months, working at the gas station to buy all the parts. When I finally got it running, I was so proud I called my dad out to the garage to show him. Dude barely looked at it, stood there for maybe 20 seconds, muttered, "That's nice, son," then immediately asked if I'd seen Tyler's batting stats in the paper that morning. Like, are you kidding me? This was basically my entire childhood. My mom would spend hours making Tyler's favorite meals before his games, got to make sure my all-star has his energy. But when I had a bike show, just grab something from the fridge, Derek. Dad would leave work early for every single one of Tyler's games but was too busy at the office to come see me win second place at the regional custom bike competition. I stopped even telling them about my competitions after a while. What was the point? And holy the money they spent on Tyler, private coaches, fancy equipment, traveling teams that went all over the state, thousands and thousands of dollars. Meanwhile, I worked 2 jobs in high school just to afford tools and parts for my bikes. Never saw a dime from my parents for my stuff. The up part is, I didn't even hate Tyler for it. He wasn't a bad kid, really, just spoiled as in completely clueless about how unfair everything was. Sometimes I'd catch him looking uncomfortable when they'd shower him with praise right after ignoring something I said, but he never spoke up. Why would he? The kid was living the dream. By the time I turned 18, I knew I had to get the out of there before I lost my mind. I'd been saving every penny I could, and I managed to rent this tiny garage about 8 miles from my parents' house, close enough that they could reach me if they ever bothered to try, but far enough that I didn't have to watch the Tyler worship service every day. I built that motorcycle repair business from absolutely nothing, no help from mom and dad, no fancy loans or family connections, just me busting my 16 hours a day, sleeping on a nasty old cot in the back of my shop for the first year until I could afford an actual apartment. It was hard but I was good at what I did. Word got around that I could fix and modify bikes better than the dealerships for half the price. That shop became my whole life. My dog, Max, would hang out with me all day, sleeping in the sun by the door while I worked. I felt like I actually mattered there, you know? Like I was worth something. And then there was this chick, Mia. She moved in next door about 2 years ago and opened this cute little coffee shop. The first time she walked over with a "welcome to the neighborhood" coffee, I nearly dropped the wrench I was holding. She was gorgeous, smart, funny, way out of my league. But for some reason, she seemed to actually enjoy hanging around and talking about bikes and engines with me. Not going to lie, I got these butterflies in my stomach whenever she'd stop by, but I kept it friendly and professional, just normal neighbor stuff. After all, why would someone like her be interested in someone greasy like me? My family had made it pretty clear I wasn't worth much, so I figured she probably thought the same. Everything was going pretty okay. Business was good, I had my dog, my shop, and at least Mia seemed to enjoy talking to me now and then. I thought maybe my life was finally on the right track. Then came the day, 2 years ago, that opened my eyes to exactly where I stood with my family. It was a Tuesday. I was working on this sweet Ducati that some rich dude from Nashville had brought in for custom work. He wanted all these fancy mods that were honestly kind of a pain in the but he was paying top dollar, so I wasn't complaining. Max was in his usual spot by the door, snoring away like the lazy he is. I had AC/DC blasting from my old speakers. I was using my plasma cutter to modify the frame. I'd done this exact same thing like 100 times before, nothing complicated. But this time, man, I still don't know exactly what happened. Maybe the metal had some defect, maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention. All I know is, 1 second I was focused on making a clean and the next, there was this horrible sound like metal tearing, a shower of sparks, and then the plasma cutter kicked back hard. The cutter sliced right through my right leg, just above the knee. I remember seeing the metal glow red hot as it tore into my flesh, and the smell, holy the smell of my own burning flesh. I screamed so loud that Max jumped up, barking like he was going to fight whatever me. Started pumping out immediately, not just bleeding, but gushing with each heartbeat. I fell backwards and cracked. My head on the concrete floor, which didn't help matters. The pain? I can't even describe it, like someone had stuck my leg in a furnace and was twisting it around. I've broken bones before, myself on engine parts, burned myself on exhaust pipes, but this was a whole different level. Help! Somebody help me! I screamed, but my shop is pretty isolated. No way anyone was going to hear me over the music. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely reach for my phone. Was pooling under me, fast spreading across the shop floor like I'd knocked over a can of paint. I could feel my heart racing in this cold, sweaty feeling spreading all over my body. With my fingers smearing the screen, I finally managed to call my mom. When she picked up, I was gasping, barely able to get the words out. Mom, I choked out, I'm really bad. The cutter. My leg. There's so much I need help now. Her response was completely casual, like I'd called to ask, what's for dinner? Derek, honey, we're kind of in the middle of something important. Can you call an ambulance? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, please, I begged, my voice cracking. I'm losing too much, I don't think I can. I need help right now, please. I was starting to feel lightheaded, and the room was spinning. Just hold, Derek. We'll be there when we can, she said, and then the line went dead. She hung up on me. I was lying there on the concrete, pressing my shop rag against the wound, but it was soaked through within seconds. My vision was getting all tunnel-like, black creeping in from the edges. I tried to call 911, but my fingers were too slippery to hit the numbers right. Max was freaking out, kept barking, whining, and nudging at my face like he was trying to keep me awake. Smart boy. With what felt like the last bit of strength I had, I tried calling my mom again, no answer. Then my dad, straight to voicemail. Figures. I tried to say my last prayer, but Max wouldn't let me peacefully. Even the afterlife comes with interruptions. Just as I was about to for the last time, I wish I did, my phone buzzed. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. I thought they told him about what happened to me, and he's checking to see what to do. Hey, Liam, his voice was loud and slurred, like he'd been drinking. I could hear music and people laughing in the background. What's up, man? Big day today. I was confused. Who the is Liam? Now I thought I didn't hear right. Anyway, I was a bit relieved. Tyler, I gasped, struggling to get the words out. Help. Accident at the shop. Bleeding bad. Need help now. There was a pause.
For a second, I thought maybe he hadn't heard me, but then he laughed.
Oh sorry. Thought you were someone else calling to congratulate me. We're celebrating my draft pick, man. AA Braves just signed me a $2 million contract. In the background, I heard my mom's voice, Tyler, honey, come take a picture with the scout. I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. My head was spinning. I could feel the seeping faster under me. Tyler, I whispered, but the line had already gone dead. My dad's voice boomed in the background, that's my boy. Professional baseball player. Always knew you had it in you. So there I was, bleeding out on my shop floor while my entire family was just 8 miles away, partying because Tyler got a baseball contract. They couldn't be bothered to drive 10 minutes to help me. Tyler, please, I whispered, but he had already hung up. My vision was fading fast now. The pain was starting to feel distant, replaced by this weird floating numbness, not a good sign. I knew enough about injuries to know I was going into shock, probably dying this time for real. Max's barking suddenly changed, becoming more frantic. Through my fading consciousness, I heard the shop door slam open. Derek. I brought you some coffee and, oh my God, Derek. Mia's voice, then her face appeared above me, total horror in her eyes. I didn't like her seeing me like this. I always portrayed myself as a tough, strong dude in front of her. Derek, stay with me. Don't close your eyes. She was already on her phone, screaming at 911. I need an ambulance now. Severe laceration, arterial bleeding, patient. In consciousness. She ripped off her belt and wrapped it around my thigh, yanking it tight as a tourniquet. The pain jolted me back to consciousness for a moment. Mia, I mumbled. Don't talk. Save your strength. Her hands were covered in mine, but she didn't hesitate for a second. The ambulance is coming. Just stay with me, Derek, please stay with me. I wanted to tell her I didn't need an ambulance, I was already saved right there in her arms. If this was how I went out, at least I had the best view. The last thing I remember before passing out was her eyes filled with tears and her voice repeating my name over and over. I later found out that Max had been barking nonstop for so long that Mia came to check what was wrong. If she hadn't shown up when she did, I wouldn't be typing this right now. The doctor told me I was about 5 minutes away from bleeding out completely. I woke up to the steady beep of hospital monitors and that weird antiseptic smell hospitals always have. My leg felt like it was on fire, but at least I was alive. Mia was asleep in the chair next to my bed, her clothes still stained with my looking at her there, even with her hair all messed up and dark circles under her eyes. I realized how lucky I was that she found me. The doctor came in a few hours later, looking all serious with his clipboard and everything. "You're lucky to be alive. If your neighbor hadn't found you when she did, you would have bled out in another 5 minutes." He cleared his throat and got that look doctors get when they're about to drop some bad news. "The bad news is the damage to your leg was extensive. The plasma cutter severed your femoral artery and caused significant nerve and muscle damage. We've managed to save the leg, but..." He paused, and I could tell he was trying to find a nice way to say whatever was coming next. "You'll need multiple surgeries, and there's a high probability you won't regain full function. This kind of injury. It's likely you won't be able to stand for long periods again." Which means. I finished for him. The words felt like in my mouth. My entire life, my business, my identity, everything I'd built for myself was gone in a single moment of carelessness. I tried to wrap my head around it all. What the was I supposed to do now? Mia woke up then and immediately came to my side, taking my hand. "I was so scared," she whispered. "There was so much and you were so pale. I thought I was going to lose you." I tried to smile for her sake. "Thanks for saving my life." She squeezed my hand. "Have your parents been here? I tried calling the number in your emergency contacts." "Huh? My parents?" I just shook my head. I was too tired to explain the whole messed up situation. Then, right on cue, my phone rang. It was my dad.
For a split second, I thought maybe they actually gave a.
"And were calling to check on me." "Dad," I answered, hating myself for still hoping. His voice came through, not concerned, just all businesslike. "Derek, your mother and I need to borrow $25,000 for Tyler's equipment and relocation expenses for his new team." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "No, how are you?" "No, we heard you were just straight to asking for money for Tyler again." "I'm in the hospital," I said slowly, my voice shaking because I was trying not to completely lose my "I almost died yesterday." "Where were you when I called begging for help?" There was an awkward pause before my dad responded dismissively. "Don't be so dramatic, Derek. It was just a I couldn't hold back anymore. I nearly bled to the doctor said another 5 minutes and I would have died. And you were all too busy celebrating Tyler's baseball contract to care." Mia was staring at me, shouting, her eyes wide. "Look," my dad said, sounding annoyed, like I was wasting his time. "We're sorry you got, but Tyler's signing is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This is important. And my life isn't?" I hated how pathetic I sounded. The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. "We need that money by next week," he finally said. I hung up without another word. Then I opened my banking app and just stared at it. For 5 years, I'd been sending my parents $1,000 a month to help out with expenses. I always figured it was the right thing to do, you know? They were struggling a bit with the mortgage, or so they said. Now I knew where that money was really going, straight into Tyler's baseball career. With a few taps, I canceled the automatic transfer. Done. 5 years of giving them my hard-earned money, and they couldn't even be bothered to help me when I was dying. Mia sat back down, looking shocked. "Derek," I couldn't help overhearing. "Did your parents really not come when you called them before I found you?" I told her everything about growing up as the forgotten son, about calling them yesterday and being ignored while they celebrated Tyler, about years of sending them money that they just funneled to my golden boy brother. By the time I finished, she looked like she wanted to punch something. "That's not family," she said, her voice shaking. "That's not how parents are supposed to act. That's just messed up." She stayed with me through that whole first week in the hospital, every day bringing me decent food because hospital food is trash, helping me figure out the TV remote, just talking to me about normal stuff to keep my mind off things. Nobody had ever done anything like that for me before. But then I got a text from Tyler. "Hey bro, heard you got that sucks. Also, did you tell mom and dad you won't help with my expenses?" Not cool, man. Family helps family. I didn't even bother responding. The next day, my mom called and left a voicemail. "Derek, honey, I know you're upset, but this is Tyler's big break. We really need that money. Call us back." Mia was there when I played the voicemail. She took my phone and deleted it. "You don't need that right now," she said. Then she surprised me by taking my hand. "You know what? I'm going to be your family now. Me and Max." Something about the way she said it made my chest feel tight in a completely different way than the pain meds. When she looked at me, it wasn't with pity, it was something else, something I wasn't used to seeing directed at me. The doctors told me I'd need at least 2 more surgeries and months of physical therapy. The medical bills were already piling up, and my insurance was only covering about half. I was looking at debt that would take years to pay off. Plus, I couldn't work. My shop was sitting empty, and I still had rent to pay on it. I told Mia one night when the reality of it all hit me. I can't work. I can't pay my bills. I can't keep my shop. Everything I built is just gone. She squeezed my hand. "We'll figure it out. I'm not going anywhere." That night, after she left, I lay in the hospital bed thinking about how my parents couldn't be bothered to drive 8 miles to save my life, but Mia, who I'd known for less than 2 years, was by my side every day. Some family you're born with, some family you find, and sometimes the family you find is worth a lot more than the one you were born with. When the nurse came in to check my vitals, she noticed I was still awake. You should get some rest, she said. Your girlfriend can come back tomorrow. I didn't correct her about Mia being my girlfriend. For the first time since the accident, I fell asleep with something almost like hope. The next few months were a complete show. Recovery from an injury like mine isn't just painful, it's I went from being a guy who could rebuild an entire motorcycle engine to someone who needed help getting to the bathroom. 3 surgeries in 2 months. The first one was to repair more of the damage to my leg. The second was to deal with some infection that popped up. The third was to try to fix some of the nerve damage. Each time they wheeled me into the OR, I wondered if this would be the one that finally fixed me. Each time I woke up, the doctors had that same careful look on their faces. The doctor had been right, I'd never stand long enough to work on bikes again, at least not the way I used to. 8-10 hours on my feet, working under bikes, crouching, lifting heavy parts, that was never happening again. My shop sat empty. I still had to pay rent on it, which was draining what little savings I had. The medical bills were insane. Even with insurance, I was looking at over $80,000. The health insurance I had covered maybe half the surgeries, and that was after fighting with them on the phone for hours. Mia was the only thing keeping me from completely losing my mind. She'd drive me to appointments, help with my exercises, and stay late into the evening just talking about normal stuff to distract me. Her coffee shop was doing okay, so she started bringing me dinner when she figured out, correctly, that I was skipping meals to save money. One evening, as she was helping me back into my apartment after therapy, my leg was in a brace and I was still on crutches. I finally got the balls to ask why she was doing all this. I mean, I couldn't decide if she had a crush on me or if this was just a pity project over a lonely loser. Because I care about you, she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Then she leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't some perfect movie moment. I was gross and sweaty from PT, probably smelled like hospital, and was balancing awkwardly on my crutches. But for the first time since the accident, I felt like maybe my life wasn't completely over. I've had a crush on you since the day I moved in next door, she admitted, blushing a little. I kept bringing you coffee, hoping you'd ask me out. I thought you were just being nice, I said, feeling like the biggest idiot on the planet. She laughed. I don't bring coffee to all the neighbors, Derek. Makes sense. 2 weeks later, she moved into my apartment. It happened naturally. She was spending most nights there anyway, helping me out. She said it was just more practical this way, but I could tell there was more to it. It should have been weird going from neighbors to roommates to whatever we were now, but it wasn't. It felt right. During all this, did my family ever call to check how I was doing? Take a wild guess. The only contact I got was my mom texting to ask if I'd considered helping with Tyler's expenses. I blocked her number after that. I was starting to panic about money. My savings were almost gone, bills were piling up, and I couldn't work. I had no idea what I was going to do. My whole identity was wrapped up in being a motorcycle mechanic. What the else was I qualified to do? What am I going to do, Mia? I asked one night, staring at the ceiling. I can't go back to what I was doing before. I'm useless now. She propped herself up on her elbow and looked down at me. You're not useless. You're just different now. You still know more about motorcycles than anyone in this town. I snorted. Lot of good that does me if I can't work on them. So don't work on them, she said. Teach other people how to work on them. I looked at her like she was crazy. Who the would want to learn from me? Are you kidding? That kid, Jamie, is always hanging around your shop asking questions. Start with him. Jamie was this 19-year-old who had been lurking around my shop for months before the accident, asking about bikes, annoying as but earnest. The next day, I called him up. Want to learn how to rebuild a carburetor? I asked. He showed up at my apartment an hour later, looking like I just offered him $1 million. I taught him from my kitchen table, using diagrams and small engine parts I could work on while sitting down. It wasn't fancy, but the kid was eating it up. I charged him $20 per session, which wasn't much, but it was something. Jamie told his friends, and soon I had 3 students, then 5. I moved the lessons to my garage, where I could at least have some proper tools around. It still wasn't much money, but it was enough to make the minimum payments on my medical bills and keep the lights on. Mia watched all this with this smug I told you so look on her face. You're a good teacher, she said one night. You ever think about making it official, like a real trade school kind of thing? I laughed at it but kept the idea in mind. My leg wasn't getting much better, though. The doctors said I'd probably always have pain, a limp, and always need to limit how long I stood. Some days were better than others, but I was starting to accept that this was my new normal. 4 months after the accident, I was finally well enough to go back to my shop, not to work like before, that was never happening again, but to try this new teaching thing for real. I'd set up a small classroom area with some folding chairs and a whiteboard. The actual work area was still fully equipped, but now it was where my students would learn hands-on. My little school had 6 regular students by then, mostly guys in their late teens or early 20s who wanted to learn motorcycle repair but couldn't afford real trade school. I charged enough to keep the lights on but not so much that these kids couldn't afford it. It wasn't making me rich, but between that and Mia's help, I was staying afloat. Then, out of nowhere, while I was sitting at my desk going over some carburetor diagrams for the next day's lesson, I heard the shop door open. Mia was at the counter. She'd started helping out at the shop when she wasn't running her coffee place. "Derek, your parents are here," she called back to me, her voice tight. My stomach dropped to my feet. I hadn't seen them since before the accident. They walked in, looking exactly the same as always. Neither of them even glanced at my leg brace or the cane I was now using to get around. "Derek," my dad said, getting straight to business as usual. "We need to talk to you about something important." I waited, not offering them a seat or anything. Why should I? "Tyler's having some problems with the team," Mom jumped in, adjusting her designer purse on her shoulder. "The contract had some fine print we didn't anticipate, and he needs to buy out part of his agreement. It's a legal thing." Dad nodded gravely. "It's going to cost around $450,000 to fix the situation. We've looked at all our options, and the only solution is for you to sell this place." I just stared at them, not sure if I should laugh or scream. "You want me to sell my business to bail Tyler out of a contract problem? This shop is just sitting here while you're recovering," Mom said, gesturing around like my entire livelihood was just some old junk I was hoarding. "If you sell it now, we can use the money to help Tyler, and there would be enough left for you to start something new once you're better." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, after them leaving me, they had the nerve to ask me to sell my business for Tyler. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice level. "You want me to sell the business that I built from nothing? The business that I can still run even with my injury? So Tyler can get out of a contract that he signed without reading?" Dad frowned. "Don't be selfish, Derek. This is your brother's future we're talking about. And stop acting like this is a real business. What, teaching kids how to win bolts? That's not a business." I almost fell out of my chair. "Selfish me?" Before I could say anything, Mia stepped forward from the counter, her eyes blazing. "Selfish? Are you serious right now?" My parents looked at her like they just noticed she existed. "Derek almost died," she said, her voice sharp and shaking with anger. "He called you begging for help, bleeding out on the floor, and you ignored him. You were too busy celebrating Tyler to even care. He's been through 3 surgeries, might never fully recover, and neither of you visited him, not once. And now you have the audacity to show up here and ask him to give up everything he's built just to bail Tyler out of another mess?" The room went dead silent, but Mia's words hung in the air like a slap. Mom looked offended. "Who are you? This is a family matter. You stay out of it." "No," I her off. "Mia is family. She's more family than either of you have ever been to me." I pointed to the door. "Get out and don't come back." Dad's face turned red. "You ungrateful, get out," I shouted, standing up despite the pain in my leg. They left, Dad slamming the door behind them hard enough to rattle the windows. Mia came to my side as I sank back into my chair, my leg throbbing like a. "I'm sorry," she said, taking my hand. "I shouldn't have interfered." I squeezed her hand. "No, you said exactly what needed to be said." That night, I couldn't sleep, not because I felt bad about what happened, I didn't, but because I was still in shock that they would have the balls to ask me to sell my shop after everything they'd done, after everything they hadn't done when I needed them. The next morning, I made a decision. I went to the bank and removed my parents from my emergency contact list. I called my lawyer, okay, not my lawyer, a friend who happens to be a lawyer, and had him draw up a will leaving everything to Mia. I even called the hospital and made sure they knew my parents were not to be given any information about me if anything happened again. I was cutting every single tie. A week later, Mia and I were cleaning up the shop after the day's lesson when she suddenly said, "I think we should make this official." "Make what official?" I asked. The school. Let's actually register it as a trade school, get some certification, do it right." I looked at her like she was crazy. "That would cost a fortune, paperwork, licenses, equipment upgrades." She grinned. "My coffee shop is doing great. I've got savings. We could be partners." "Business partners?" I asked. She came over and kissed me on the cheek. "That too." 2 weeks later, we submitted the paperwork to create Summers Motorcycle Technical Institute, a fancy name for what was basically just me teaching kids in my old shop. But Mia insisted we make it sound professional. You know what's funny? My entire life, I'd tried to get my parents to notice me, to be proud of me. And now that I was finally building something good, something that might actually work, I didn't give a if they knew or not. Their opinion didn't matter anymore. That night, as Mia and I were celebrating with takeout, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Tyler, the first I'd heard from him since that family helps family text. "Mom and Dad are freaking out. They might lose the house because of my contract thing. Can you help?" I stared at the phone for a long time, thinking about all the years I'd put up with there and the way they were trying to spin everything. Still, they had the audacity to call me and ask for help and guilt trip me. I typed, "You're my brother, but none of you acted like family when I was bleeding out on the floor. I've got a real family now. Good luck with your baseball career." Then I blocked his number too. Mia wrapped her arms around me from behind. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, actually, I think I am." I felt completely at peace with my decision. They'd made their choice a long time ago, now I was making mine. Recently, I found out through an old high school friend that my parents ended up losing the house after all. They couldn't make the mortgage payments after spending everything they had on Tyler's contract buyout. Apparently, they moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of town. Dad had to come out of retirement and take a job at the local hardware store. Mom started working part-time at a department store. Karma's I guess. Whenever I catch myself feeling bad for them, I remember the sight of my own pooling around me while they popped champagne for Tyler, and that feeling disappears pretty quick. As for Tyler, his baseball career crashed and burned spectacularly. After all that money spent to fix his contract issues, he showed up to training out of shape and with a major attitude problem. The team gave him multiple warnings before cutting him loose after just one season. Last I heard, he's working as an assistant coach at some small-town high school, still talking about his almost pro career. The golden child finally had to face reality. He wasn't special, just spoiled. Sometimes I wonder if he ever realized how much our parents sacrificed for him and how little they gave a about me. And yeah, it's been 3 years now since everything went down. Mia and I got married last spring in a small ceremony with just our friends and her family. Our motorcycle school now has its official certification and a waiting list 2 months long. We're even thinking about expanding to a second location. My leg still gives me trouble, and I'll always walk with a limp, but I've learned to work around it. Some nights, I still wake up in a cold sweat, phantom pain shooting through my leg, memories of that day still fresh. But Mia's always there, holding me until I fall back asleep. My old family might have left me to, but my new one gives me a reason to live, and that's more than enough for me. So, what would you have done in my shoes? Them off like I did? Try to forgive? I'm curious what other people think. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right call, but then I look at what I've built from the ashes of that day, and I think maybe, just maybe, it was the only call I could have made.